Welcome everyone to our By the Book YouTube channel. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Edel Coffey, who is author of Breaking Point. And Breaking Point has been a bestseller in Ireland, getting to #1 in the charts. And it's an absolute pleasure to meet you today, Edel, and to hear about your background in writing and becoming an author. So welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you might just tell me a little bit about the book itself and how it came about.
Yeah, so Breaking Point tells the story of two women. One is a doctor. Her name's Susanna. She also goes by the name Dr. Sue. That's kind of her TV name because she's not only a pediatrician in a very busy Manhattan hospital, but she's also a TV guru who appears on shows like Oprah, and she also writes books for like parenting guides and stuff like that. So she's really, really busy, really successful, semi-famous doctor. And then the other woman is Adelaide, and she is a journalist, and she is a sort of a news reporter, TV journalist who covers national stories of national importance all over America. And she really likes that job because it sort of helps her to live a kind of nomadic life, and she doesn't have to engage with her own personal life too much. She doesn't have to address what might be wrong in her life, and she's also sort of on the run from her past a little bit. So the two stories intertwine when Adelaide has to cover Dr. Sue's trial, and the trial is for negligence because one day Dr. Sue leaves her baby in her car. She forgets her baby and doesn't realize it until it's too late. So that's where the story starts. And I suppose where the story came from was I was on maternity leave in 2015 and 2016. I had two babies in a row. And I was really busy. I had two small stepchildren as well who were 5 and 6 by the time I had the two babies. And I was just kind of doing everything and running all over the place. I always felt like I was late. I always felt like I was doing everything badly. I was always very sort of distracted and sleep deprived. And I was trying to sort of keep up a little bit with work and keep my hand in a bit. And I heard this news story then in 2017 about a baby who'd been forgotten in a car. And it happens quite regularly, actually, not here in Ireland, but in America, it happens between like 30 and 50 times a year, and Australia and the UK as well. Lots of places where the temperatures are a little bit more extreme than they are in Ireland. And it kind of just triggered a really big fear or terror or panic in me because my children were so young at the time and I was so busy, and I was aware I was so busy, and I always felt like I was sort of close to making a mistake, and I had made sort of like stupid mistakes, like I'd driven off and left a buggy on the side of the road just because I was forgetful, distracted, and you do things like that all the time. But when I heard that story, I thought, that actually sort of perfectly represents everything that is wrong with our sort of always on culture, this culture that we live now. I think that everybody lives, whether you have children or you don't, this in demand, always available, always answering the phone, always answering emails, no matter what time of day or night, and just being really busy. And I just felt that's actually it, and I felt it would be so easy for that to happen to anybody. So, and previously I'd been kind of thinking about that culture. Without that story, I'd been thinking, how can this be how we sort of live when we have children? Because I had had a very busy life before that, and I really enjoyed my career. And then I had a baby and another baby, and I felt like actually I'm expected to just keep going at the same pace that I was going previously, but now I've just got this like huge extra responsibility that not only is a huge responsibility, but also takes up all of your time. And I was like, how am I supposed to do the work and do this? And it just felt like there was this kind of complete pretense around the whole issue. Like, let's just pretend it's not happening and the women will just cope. And generally we do, we do just sort of like get in there and sort out some childcare, and it's all cobbled together. And we're trying to do everything and we're exhausted and we're at breaking point, which is where the title came from, in a kind of flash.
Right.
So that's kind of the genesis of it. And yeah, that news story really sort of triggered the whole sort of, it kind of came together with that then. So yeah, I started writing then in a bit of a real sort of hurry, I suppose. I was trying to get the story down and I didn't have a lot of time to do it.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's so interesting to hear. Just the background in the sense that you related to it. It was something going on in your own life. And then when you heard that story, it sort of triggered the book in you, that it could be written in a fiction way, but you were almost putting something that you cared about into it, because you were going through that high pressure, new mum, not just once, twice, sleep deprived. And we all make mistakes when we don't have sleep, because our brains are not, switched on, and we're then responsible for these young babies. So yeah, like, it is terribly sad on one hand, but on the other hand, it's very brave to bring this topic up, to start a discussion, at least around our society and what is expected from a new mother, which is, as you said, to carry on as if, not that nothing has happened, but to carry on with the same expectations of trying to work, manage the new role as being a mom, and everything can kind of get to that point where you are breaking.
Yeah, and no, I think what you said there, and you corrected yourself, like, you're expected to carry on as if nothing has happened, not as if nothing has happened, but you are expected to carry on as if nothing has happened, I think. And also, so many women, myself included, try to pretend nothing has happened. Like, we try to pretend to our bosses and to our partners and to our friends and family that, like, nothing to see here, business as usual, coping fabulously, everything's going fine. I can take on that extra work. Yes, I can stay in the office. And you are literally sweating from the face, trying to get your work finished so you can make it to the creche on time to pick up your kids. And you don't want to let anyone know, because it's kind of taken as a sign of weakness in the workplace that if you sort of turn around and say, I actually have to leave at 5 because I have to pick up my kid, even though I've been here since like 8 a.m. and I've done as much work, if not more work, as anyone else, because I know that I have a sort of finite period that I can stay in the office for, it's still seen as a sort of weakness. And all of these double standards, I was living through them. They were all coming up. And I know a lot of them were coming from within. Like, I know if I turned around to my employer and said that, they'd be like, of course, no problem. And I think a lot of employers would, because there really is a kind of engagement with, people needing flexibility and needing women in the workforce. And if we don't make it easy for them to be in the workforce as mothers, we won't have them in the workforce. Like, look at our political makeup. There's still very few women TDs, and I really do think that family plays a part in that, and like making it easy for people is important. Like, look what happened with Helen McEntee when she was like, there is no scope for maternity leave for a minister, sorry, it's never happened before. It was the most ridiculous sort of thing to happen in 2021. I think it was last year, wasn't it? But yeah, so there's all these things that, there's expectations, and you don't want to let yourself down. You don't want things to change yourself, because you are still the same person. And that's another thing. I'm on my hobby horse now, Rachel, I'm sorry. But there's another thing that, this expectation that you will change, that you will be this new person, that you will be this mother, this person who gets all of her satisfaction from being a mother, instead of being the same person that you were before, who really enjoyed their career, who really enjoyed all sorts of things. And, the expectation that you won't still want to do those things is, again, it's one that brings a lot of pressure and a lot of unnecessary pressure. I think, it's okay to still be a person and a mother, I think.
Yeah, no, I love meeting and talking to authors and actually finding out then that there's actually real passion behind the topic.
Or rage in this case.
And, that there's almost, yes, it's a fiction book, but it's addressing something, wider and more meaningful. So would you have had much feedback then from mothers on this topic?
you know, amazingly, a lot of feedback after the news broke about the book being sold. So there was an announcement made that the book had been sold and this is what the book was about. And I got messages on social media from people I knew, from people I didn't know, saying I did that. And their baby, thankfully, was fine. Nothing happened. And even like when the book came out, I was at a party and I met this woman and she was asking me what my book was about. And I told her and she said, oh, yeah, she said, I did that.
Oh, yeah.
Like just so many people have done it. And like her story was something like she had a toddler and a baby, like a newborn, and was bringing them swimming. And she took the toddler into the swimming pool and realized about 20 minutes later that she'd just left the newborn in the, you know, the car seat that you carry around with you. And she just she just went completely, you know, into shock in the pool, jumped out of the pool. The baby was there in the changing room, fine. 20 minutes later, still asleep in its little car seat. But, you know, these things, they're kind of everyday occurrences. And it's a real feeling of there, but for the grace of God, go I. But at the same time, because nothing happens and because everything's fine, I suppose you don't hear about it. And also, I think nobody says a word about it because, like, imagine if you did that, you're thinking like the only person you could probably tell is like your partner or, you know, your mother or somebody who, you know, is not going to judge you. So I think there's kind of, you know, there's not a lot of talk around it either. The fact that, you know, people do this and they're like, oh, thank God, like nothing happened. But yeah, there was a lot of response. And also since the book has come out, there's been a lot of really, really gorgeous messages from people. I'm always amazed that people I don't know have bought this book. Kind of like, I'm still kind of coping with the fact that this is being read by strangers. And this, like, loads of women have gotten in touch to say that, to just tell me about their own experiences of sort of like trying to find a balance and reaching a breaking point in their own lives. And also just of like things like that. Yes, I did this. This is the thing that happened to me. And so it does seem to have like struck a nerve. But for me, I suppose I talked about things like this with my friends. And actually, I met a friend, an old friend yesterday for a coffee, and she has 3 kids under 3. And that's no joke. But we were kind of talking about the realities. And, you know, I will be very honest and open about, you know, my experiences. And she said to me, she said, I'm just not interested in talking to anybody who is having a good experience with their child at the moment, because it is just not reflective of my own experience. And I thought it was really funny, but also I thought, you know, a lot of those people who you think are having good experiences aren't having good experience as well. A lot of it is just a kind of, you know, they managed to get their makeup on. So you think, well, they look like they've got it all together, but actually, of course, they don't. I don't think any of us really do.
I know. Yeah. No, it's such an interesting topic. And I think really, really valid that, you know, it's come to light now and discussions are happening and people aren't feeling, you know, because I'm sure a lot of guilt, you know, comes with when you mess up, and to be able to share it and know that, you know, you're not alone and that there's others. I mean, that's so important too, I feel. But I'd like to ask you, Edel, around writing the book. So you have 2 under 5. Would it be fair when you finally got around to writing, or?
No, we had 4. So I've got, yeah, it's confusing for people because I say I had my first daughter in 2015, but actually, so I have 2 daughters, but my husband and I have 4 children together. He has 2 sons, and so they're my stepchildren, and they are 10 and 11 now, and our daughters are 6 and 5. So so when I started writing this book, yeah, I had 4 children, obviously, but they were just younger. But yeah, I started writing, as I said. So I had this lifelong dream of writing a book. I always wanted to write a novel. And I always just assumed I would, because I had sort of lots of opportunities in my working life and hadn't really taken them, and I hadn't felt able to take them either. And like, I had really like once in a lifetime opportunities where, you know, a big publisher in London, I went over and had lunch with the publisher and they said, yes, we like your idea and this is the editor you'll be working with. Now you go home and write the thing. And I did not do that. And I really felt like that was, you know, such a huge failure, which like it kind of was a huge failure. You know, there was a big opportunity and I didn't take it. And that was probably about 13 years ago. And I just found out I just couldn't at the time. I was in a really, really high stress, very busy job at the time. And I didn't have the headspace. So I realize that now. But I always assumed that I would do it, and that an opportunity like that would come again when the time was right for me. Kind of like very positive, optimistic outlook. And I was always meeting editors as well, like in my work, you know, so I knew if I wrote a book that I might be able to sort of ask somebody for advice or for help. But I hadn't written a book, and then I had children, and then I thought the assumption that I would do it sort of disappeared overnight, because I just thought, I don't know where on earth I'm going to get the time, the energy, the motivation, you know, even just like being able to put two sentences together. I could not see that it was going to happen anymore in the way that I previously thought it would. I wasn't confident that it was going to happen. So that really scared me into a position of, you know, just trying to make it happen. And I was trying to figure out ways that I could make it happen. Then I was thinking, okay, could you get up really early and write? You know, could you get up earlier than your 2 a.m. wake up call with your midnight feeds and all that? And that obviously was not a goer, because I was wrecked and absolutely sleep deprived. And then I thought, well, maybe I can just stay up late and do it. And that wasn't happening either. But then I started trying to find time. I just thought, okay, if I'm looking for the ideal opportunity, it's never going to come. If I'm looking for, you know, 3 hours of silence and in a lovely office with a beautiful computer and desk, that's not going to happen, because I didn't have any of that stuff. So I just thought, okay, I'm just going to write when I can, and I'm going to see what happens. And I was surprised at what happened, because I thought, you know, you can't do anything in 20 minutes. You can't achieve anything writing for 20 minutes a day. But you really, really can. And I did. And when I realized that, I started doing it regularly as I could, and started doing it every day. And I had a really nice inbuilt structure in that, you know, I had to pick up the kids at a certain point every day, and I had to get to the school a little bit early to get parking space. And so I'd bring my laptop with me, or I'd bring a notebook, but usually the laptop. And I'd sit there and I'd write as fast as I could for like 20 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour, however long I had. I remember one day I opened my laptop and I was like, I've got an hour. And I opened the laptop and it had 15% battery. And I was like, oh no. But actually that 15% battery lasted the whole hour. And I got like 3,000 words written. And I was so delighted with myself. But yeah, so I think you can get in your own way like that. You know, I really was one of those people who believed, yeah, I need like, you know, a year sabbatical from work. I need 8 hours a day. I need to have all of these lovely ritualistic things in place, like the cup of tea and, you know, whatever special pen you use, and you just don't. And so that was a real revelation to me. And writing every day kept the story in my head. And that was a revelation too, because I found that when I wasn't writing, I was actively thinking about it. And then, you know, by the time it got to the next day, I'd have, you know, new ideas. Exactly. So
there.
Yeah. So
we're ready to download.
Yeah. And people always, I know people say this, and it's so straightforward and simple, but like actually when you do it, it makes such a difference. So, and also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, Dan.
I was just going to say, when I got ideas, because my brain, like I just forget everything. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea, I'll remember it in the morning. I never do. So if I had an idea, like, you know, when I was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon making the dinner, I would just write a little note in my phone, and it could just be one word, just like an aid memoir, just to trigger that idea again the next day when you were ready to write. So do make notes of your brilliant ideas.
Yeah, no, what's interesting there is that it's almost more important to do it consistently every day as opposed to the time. Yeah. So if 20 minutes a day is better than 3 hours,
5 hours a week. Yes.
Yeah. In one chunk, because as you said, it's like you're triggering part of your brain.
And you have to go back and reread all the stuff you've written then if you want to write it once a week. And I know some people only have that chunk once a week, and that might work for them, and that's fine. But for me, it was like, if I did it every day, you're really taking a lot of work out of the process. So you could just get straight into writing instead of going, oh, what was happening there? Who was speaking? Where was I? So.
And did you, so out of interest then, did you know, you knew the outline of the story, but you didn't know the ins and outs of the story until you started. Okay.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted two characters, and I knew I wanted to tell the story from different perspectives and different experiences as well. But I didn't have the story all worked out, and I didn't even know that Adelaide was going to be a journalist initially. I wasn't sure if she was going to be something else, and it took a while to figure out what her role would be, and also her role was much smaller initially, and I built her up to a nearly like a secondary character to Dr. Sue. And yet, so that was a learning process as well, because I would write, and I'd write in a kind of exploratory way, and you might only use 10% of what you'd written, but it might take you to a new idea. And I find that's kind of the magic of writing. Like, there's a real sort of alchemy, I think, when you're writing. Like, if you sit down and say, I'm going to write 1,000 words, and you write, it might take you until you get to 900 words to have some sort of epiphany or some sort of idea that's worth using, but you would never have got there if you didn't write those 900 words first. But now this time I'm working on the second novel now, and I'm working on it in a very different way, because I've gone through an interesting editing process with Breaking Point. Not knowing how to write a book, having never done it before, the editing process was really, really a brilliant learning process for me, because, I learned a lot about things like pace and balancing narratives, and just like weighting the story so that it's kind of satisfactory for the reader. And I didn't really know a lot about that, but I knew instinctively, like, there was a point in the book where that guy, Adam, he's the psychotherapist, he was a much bigger character, and it was really annoying me. Like, he was just like, the book was really sort of slow, and I realized I was at the halfway point, and like nothing really much had happened except for this guy banging on all the time. So eventually I just like took a chunk of like 10,000 words out, and off he went. And I was like, he's just a peripheral character. This is, he's gone. So you kind of, well, I certainly had to sort of work my way into it and like that, and discover things and throw out a lot of work as well, which is hard, because you're like, yeah. I've written all these words, but
of course, yeah.
But no,
I've heard that now a few times, but I've also heard then, as you said, you wouldn't have gotten the brilliance of the 2,000 words.
I didn't say brilliance.
I'll say it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, or you wouldn't have gotten that. You wouldn't have got
the idea.
Yeah, or whatever it is, without
spark,
and I suppose the consolation is you can always tell yourself you can come, that could be a second book or a follow on. But you are, I suppose you're learning your voice too. And sometimes the other characters need these characters to go for them to develop as well into the story.
Yeah, or even just for pacing. And like in terms of outlining now, I have like a very specific outline that I never thought I would have something so specific in terms of writing a book. But at the same time, while the outline is very specific, when I'm writing, I'm still getting different ideas, and then the story changes a little bit. So just because you have a really rigid outline doesn't mean that outline can't change, or that your story can't go different places. So I definitely am very open to following the story wherever it goes, even if that is not following my outline. And my editor as well is very open to that, I think. She doesn't say that she's not anyway if when I present things to her, but it's great. The editing experience is really, I know it has a sort of reputation for being painful, but for me, I really liked it, because you've got people making your book better and sort of correcting your mistakes. So it's what's not to love.
Yeah, no, I suppose there, when you were talking, it's like on one hand you have the structure, which you need, but on the other hand, you're still allowing the creative process to flow by being open to the fact that things can change. but the structure is important because it probably saves a lot of work in the long run.
Exactly. And I didn't have that the first time around, and I learned how to do that now the second time. So I feel like I am saving myself work in the future process, which will be the editing process, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not.
Adele, at which stage then, so we go back to that, you were writing the first book, you were doing your 20 minutes a day. At which stage then did you feel that was ready to go to an agent?
So it wasn't at the stage that it was ready to go to an agent, that's for sure. It was at the stage where I was so fed up with it and fed up with myself, and also just feeling, again, that feeling of like, I'm never going to achieve this dream. This is never going to happen for me. And I'd probably been working on it for about a year at that point, because I remember it was January 2020, and I just felt like I can't go into another year now doing it. I said, I'll be sitting here in another year working on this book and nothing will have happened. So I kind of have this thing, and I've done it before. I do this kind of like game of chicken with myself, or it's kind of some weird brinkmanship where I sort of put myself in a position where I cannot not finish something. So I emailed Marianne Gunn O'Connor, who's the most famous agent I knew of, and I just said, I'm a journalist, I have a novel, would you could I send you 3 chapters and a synopsis? And she said, oh, send me what you have. And I thought, oh no, because what I have is a giant mess. But I emailed her on the Monday, and I spent the rest of the week working on the thing to clean it up, and I sent it to her then on the Friday, and she was going away, and she said, I won't get to read it until I come back. And then I got a text from her on the Sunday to say she had read it, and she loved it, and that we should meet. And so we met the following week, and then I had an agent, and that was actually the most magical moment in the whole process for me, because it was the first time I felt that somebody actually outside of me, somebody external, somebody objective, somebody like who wasn't related to me or wasn't my friend, actually believed in me. And that was just the most amazing moment.
Wow. Oh, that's lovely. No, she's amazing. She's got some amazing authors, and
and again, that was
validation from her is as good as it gets.
Precisely, because it was just like, who's on her books, and it just felt like this is not happening. But it was happening, and it was amazing. And that's she brilliant. Is amazing, and I just think of her as this kind of like very evolved human being. Like she's I just think she's better than most people. She's just like there's a reason she's called a super agent, because she feels like very wise, very just like she's 100% fighting your corner all the time, which is really, I think that's what you need in an agent. But she's so fantastic. I'm so blessed to have her.
No, I was on her website actually yesterday, reading up a bit about you actually. And no, it's lovely because even on her website in the news part, she puts up all the news about her authors and their books. Now obviously you're there with Breaking Point, which is lovely, but I mean, you just scroll down and you see everyone else, and it is incredible. She's really
impressive. She's
very impressive. That's amazing. Now that would have happened then just before lockdown.
Exactly. So it was a very weird time to be getting kind of like exciting things happening. So like I've only met Marianne in person once in my whole life, which was to meet her that time her to talk to me and for us to agree that she would be my agent. And so I haven't met her since, but we speak a lot, But so then lockdown happened, and we worked a bit more on the book, and then she submitted it we sold it in the summer. Again, when you go on submission, I think it's called, so she sends the book to some publishers that she thinks will be interested. And I remember a friend of mine who's an author, a really, prestigious, well thought of, very experienced author, told me, so she said, now Edel, just don't think about it. Just put it out of your head now until Christmas, because it will probably take 6 months. And I said, okay, fine. That's great. It's really good to know that. And then within like 10 days, Marianne had sold it. And it was kind of like, what? So that whole process,
Amazing,
it was
yeah.
very surreal. It still feels surreal. I don't think I engaged with it emotionally at all, because again, the pandemic was, we were in the very early stages of the pandemic, like summer 2020. It was all a bit weird. Nothing felt real. All of the editors and all of the publishers that I spoke to before we decided who to go with, all of those conversations happened on Zoom, and a lot of them were like, oh, this is so strange. Like normally we would have been whisking you to London. And I was like, oh, why didn't you whisk me to London? So, it was a very unreal experience. And I had to check a lot of the details with a lot of people. I had to send an email to my husband to say, would you just read that for me there and tell me if it's saying what I think it's saying. I had to text Marianne and say, Marianne, is this actually what they're offering? And she's like, yes, Edel, that's what they're offering. So, it's fantasy stuff. It's really fantasy stuff. And I just don't think I kind of really believe it still. I don't believe it's happened. Like a lot of the stuff that's happened, I don't believe it's real, which is weird.
I know. I was watching actually an interview with you yesterday, and I mean, I found it incredible that, you're incredibly talented. This was kind of something 13 years in the waiting. You worked extremely hard to get there, finding your 20 minutes a day with 4 children. And yet there's still a seed of like self-doubt in your mind around your success. So, what do you think that is?
I don't know if I think part of it is being a woman. We always feel like imposters, particularly around success, or part of it is to do with my upbringing. I think, because there's money in this situation as well. And I grew up where, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s where nobody had any money really. But so like large sums of money really scare me as well, I think. And so that's kind of, there's an imposter syndrome around that. And also just, I think the creative personality and temperament is self-doubt. And you've interviewed enough authors to know that everybody talks about the voice in their head. And also because you work in a bubble, you don't know if your work is any good, or if it's really good, or if it's really rubbish. And you won't know that until you show it to someone, and that's a really exposing experience. And then even when you show it to someone and they say it's good, you won't know what people think of it until you publish it. And then it's too late to say, actually, no, this is a terrible idea. Let's just not bring the book out at all. So it's a very exposing, very nerve-wracking experience. And I just think self-doubt is part of that, a creative personality, because look, the creative experience is so subjective. Like I've read so many books that I don't like, and I know that they're good or very good or grand, or I know that loads of people love this book and it's their favorite book. And so I know for a fact that loads of people will read this book and be like, what is all the fuss about here? Like, not my thing. And that's fine. It's not your cup of tea. But yeah, that's subjective. Like you're always open to that subjective thing. So yeah, I think I've got a triple whammy of self-doubt.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was because I was so impressed by your success. And then, I was a little bit surprised to see you kind of question it almost.
Oh
and I did kind of think, I wonder, what that is. So it is interesting just to get your view on that. And I think what you say is absolutely true. It's a combination of all those things.
Yeah. But also, Rachel, I think it's like, don't get me wrong, I think it's very damaging. And I wish I wasn't like that, because I think if I had a bit more self-belief, if I had a bit more confidence in my own ability, I would have got here like much sooner, or I would have written that book 13 years ago. And now it may not have been the same book. Well, it certainly wouldn't have been the same book. And would it have been successful? I don't know. But I really feel that it is a negative thing in my life and in people's lives who are suffering the same sort of self-doubt. That would be one of my pieces of advice to people, is to like, please just override that negative voice, because actually, if you think about it rationally, it is in no way helpful, useful, beneficial. There's not a single benefit to self-doubt, I don't think. Unless your work's really bad and it stops you putting it out. But no, I think it's corrosive, it's damaging. And like, I do try to sort of suppress it a bit or try to like put it away. But like, I was talking to somebody about, my nerves are gone with the book. Like, I was saying to somebody, if this is how you feel when things are going really well and when everybody's saying nice things and the book is selling, how do you feel when things are going badly and when you're getting bad reviews, which happens and which will happen, I'm sure, with me. And then I was thinking, actually, I bet that feels better, because I bet that feels more acceptable to you, as a creative person. There is a part of you that believes you're no good and that believes, yeah, well, I knew it was going to be a bad review, so that's not a shock. So I think actually it might be easier when things are going bad. Yeah. Strangely, I know that's warped.
No, I definitely think as well, there's a lot of pressure on you now.
Oh my God.
Especially no, but it's almost like, because you've set this standard now too. And I know from actually talking to Kathleen McMahon, and after her first book, there was this pressure for the second book that hadn't been there before because of her success. So although the success was a good thing, it did put this pressure.
It's unavoidable. And you know what, Rachel, I was adamant that I was going to have my second novel finished before the first one came out, because I thought there are three ways it could go. It could go really badly and I won't be able to write a second book, because I'll be like, well, I'm awful and I don't know why I thought I could write a book, and therefore I should never write a second book. Or it could go, as it has done, really brilliantly, and then I'll be paralyzed thinking, what, I can't do this again. Or it could go like, middle ground, fine. Why should I bother writing another book? It's made no impact in the world. But so I really wanted to get the second book finished before the first one came out, and it could stymie me completely. No, sorry, and that's my extension lead. I haven't managed to do that, but I did manage to get the story and the outline, and I've got a lot of it written. So at least I feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing with this story. But it's funny to mention that I have kind of felt some sort of second guessing come into play because of what people have said about this book, or people describing this book, and I've been thinking, oh, maybe I should how could I make the second book a little bit more like this one then, if they like that? And I just think, like, no, I have to shut that out.
Yeah, exactly,
because it's a different book, and you just have to hope that the mind that created this book is the same mind that will create the second book. And it might not be similar, but it will hopefully be a similar flavor, or a recognizable flavor that people recognize as me, and hopefully they'll like it. And sure, look, if they don't, what can you do? I maybe I'll just take I don't know, like.
And is it still, Edel, is it still 20 minutes a day for you, or have you managed to find a bit more?
No, it's at the moment it is nothing a day, because publication has been so incredibly busy.
Of course,
and that's actually been really frustrating, because I've been working on the second one in fits and starts, and it doesn't work so well for me like that. I like to get really immersed into it. So but I do have some time coming up now at the end of the month, which I have bartered off my husband, to just go and take a weekend of writing. So I'm really excited about that. I'll probably just fall asleep for 3 days. I'm hoping to write.
Have you then a time frame for the second one?
I don't have a publication date, but it is due at the end of this month. So yes.
And can you tell us anything about that story, or?
You know what, I kind of tend to believe that, and I have spoken about it a little bit, and I'm deciding not to speak about it, because I feel like
it's still evolving.
But also I feel like I'm talking myself out of it. I'm getting bored of it, sort of like by talking about it, So what I will say is it's definitely dealing with issues in the same way that Breaking Point did. And it's definitely being written under the same constraints as Breaking Point. So I presume it will be breakneck speed, page turner.
That's good. So the same style.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And definitely sort of very involved and in love with the characters in this book as well. So I feel very invested in them. So hopefully that people
well, I
will
look
like
forward
them.
to hearing more about it when in time. But I'd like to go back. Just you touched on it there, and I this is why I love these interviews, because well, one, getting to meet people like yourself, but also to be able to hear your advice for authors that are starting out. So that's kind of one of the reasons I host these, because I know there's so many authors that are either thinking of writing a book, or they have their first book and they're wondering about a second one. You know, and as we kind of touched on, there are challenges in this industry, you know, whether it be self-doubt or self-motivation or the critical voice, and all those kind of things along the way. So what would you have in advice for other people?
In terms of practical advice, like I think anyone who's working on a book or writing a book probably knows how to do it, or probably has read enough books to know how to do it themselves. But you know, it can get unwieldy, and you can get sort of lost in the giant like 50,000 word document, and then you get stalled. So my advice first and foremost is get rid of the self-doubt. Okay, it doesn't help anybody. I know that's easier said than done, but like at least make an effort, or acknowledge that it's self-doubt you're hearing, and nobody has sort of approved that self-doubt. It is not an expert on your ability, on your talent, on your skill. So just say, oh, fine, that's the self-doubt, but you know, we're not going to listen to you today. Second of all, perfectionism, the absolute enemy of all art. I suffered from it myself. And just to clarify, perfectionism doesn't mean you do things perfectly. It means that you feel like you can't do anything until everything's perfect. And so it just paralyzes you. It stalls you. Everyone else achieves while you sit there waiting for things to be perfect. So that's a huge enemy. And I just think get rid of that too. Also, if you're afraid that your work is not perfect or it's not good enough to show to somebody, get that out of your head as well, because you should see the state of drafts. Okay, drafts are messy, and agents and editors are these amazing people who know exactly what their job is. And if you send them a pile of words that has collapsed into a big mountain here, like they will be able to look at that pile of words and say, yes, I see the kernel of a story there. That is brilliant, and we know how to fix it. Or they'll be able to say, no, this is not for us. So don't wait to show your work, and don't show it to somebody like, you know, your friend who's writing as well, because I don't know, like if you show it to somebody objective, they will be able to actually help you. They will send you back something that says, you know, this could be good if you did this and this, or this could be right for this editor. Have you heard of this publisher? But if you show it to a friend, they're probably likely to say, that's really good. Yeah, well done. And there's nothing really practical or useful that you can take from that. So I would not wait to show your work, because like if there is a kernel in there that is in some way, you know, workable or saleable or whatever word you want to put on it, an agent or an editor will see it. And you must remember that without authors, without writers, agents don't have work, publishers don't have work. You know, they need your story to you know, to continue what they do. Like we're all part of a system, and without the stories, the system doesn't exist anymore. So have confidence in yourself, and don't be afraid to send it out. You know, it's not a one-shot game. You know, you can send something out and the editor or author says, or agent says, I don't like it. Now you've got a relationship. You can email them again with your next thing.
Such good advice, Edel. And as you said, it's just about getting that constructive criticism in the early stages to know what you're working with.
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Take it as constructive. Do not take it as I'm so bad at, I don't know why I thought I could write. Take it as constructive. And often these people will be blunt because they are so busy and they are so under time pressure, and they will say things directly. They will not dress it up. I think I have a huge advantage in my journalism background, because every day I got like the hairdryer effect every day from an editor, like pretty much. And so any kind of criticism, it's fine. I just feel like this is normal. So don't take it personally. Take the advice, take the good stuff from it, and don't take it to mean that you're talentless, because you're not. If you're writing a book, chances are you're probably good at writing. Because who would do it? Who else would do it if they didn't have a passion or a love for it?
Yeah, no, that's such good advice. And I might then just finish up. I can't believe we've been talking for so long. It's gone so quickly, and I'm so appreciative of your time, because I know it is so busy for you. But I suppose then, if you were to again look back at the 13 years, what would you've kind of said to yourself back then? So I suppose at the meeting maybe in London that you were at, and you were offered this book deal. Is there anything you would have told yourself or done differently?
Yes, so many things. Write the book, you stupid girl. No, I would have, what I'd tell myself to get engaged more. I felt that I had to go away and write a book on my own. And again, it comes back to the perfectionism thing. I felt like I had to go away, produce this 100,000 words, having never written a book in my life, having never written fiction really, and then present it to them. But actually what I needed to do was to email the editor and say, so now where do I start? Can you help me? Here's a chapter. What do you think? Get engaged is what I would have said to myself. Sort of like create those relationships, get help, essentially get help. Stop trying to do everything on your own, because the minute you start reaching out to people will generally respond. People are nice like that.
And you're an example of that.
I don't know, but if I read people's work all the time, and if I can't, I will tell them somebody who can, or I'll try to help them in some way. And that's because people have always done the same for me. So, you just try to perpetuate it, I suppose.
Yeah, pay it back. Yeah, no,
try to do it all by yourself.
You're very good for taking the time. And then one last question. Is there a movie in Breaking Point, do you think?
Oh, you know what? Every single person who's read it says, yes, there is. So I hope so. Where my agent is negotiating at the moment, so I'm hoping.
Amazing.
Yeah, but all those things, they're options, and they may never come to pass. But in my dream world, Ruth Negga is Adelaide and Charlize Theron is Dr. Sue. So just in case.
Well, if you visualized it, that's pretty powerful.
Okay, well, maybe we'll send that out to the universe, and it might happen.
I could actually totally see that as well.
Wouldn't Ruth Negga be so perfect?
Yeah, she's incredible, and the fact that she's Irish,
I know,
is nice too. No, and then Charlie is just incredible, and she definitely has that whole doctor successful
so aloof but hurting inside.
Yeah. Wow. Well, fingers crossed for you. That would be it. Definitely, it struck me as something as definitely being transferable to the big screen. And something again that hasn't been talked about before, discussed, or so it's always nice to see Irish authors taking the lead with these stories. And it's not just an Irish platform, but there's a global platform there for that story, which is incredible for your first book. So well done to you.
Thank
you. I look forward to continue to watch your success.
Oh, thank you. It's been so nice to speak to you.
Yeah, you're mostly on Instagram, is that correct?
Yes, I just deleted my Facebook account this morning, because honestly, it's just I actually don't know how to engage with it anymore. So I use Instagram and Twitter. I'm just Edel Coffey on both. But Instagram is where you'll find me, and pictures of my cats.
And cats, and is that 2 cats, 3 cats?
We have 3 cats now. We used to have 2, and one of them died. They were brothers last September. So we got 2 more kittens. So now we have 3 cats, and they keep me company most mornings.
Lovely, very nice. And the 4 children as well.
Yes, sure. It's a whole menagerie here.
Wow. Well, no, you've done amazing, and I think it's such an inspirational chat. For others that are starting out, trying to figure out how they find the time.
I hope so. And look, if I can do it, anyone can do it. It's just have confidence in yourself and just like reach out earlier than you think you should, you know, contact people, send 3 chapters, lie and say you have the full book, and then you'll just have to write it.
You're such a pleasure to chat to you, Edel. You're amazing at what you've done so far. So congratulations.
Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you, Rachel.
Okay. Thanks, Edel.
Bye.
Thank you.